Well, last week I taught the Torah portion that, was out of time, but I just did not want to let go of that teaching. And I'm glad I did it because there was a lot of people, especially out-of-towners, who really got a lot out of it and saw amazing things, which really made me happy. I think some people got something good out of it, people in town, but I didn't really hear from anybody about it, so I'm not sure. But I just loved that teaching. Well, this week, same kind of thing. I got a teaching that I really, really love. And that's what I want. I want God to give me teachings that I really enjoy. So I got another one this week. It doesn't always happen. The reason I'm saying is because he always gives me an amazing picture, but he doesn't always give me an amazing picture that I really love, that I really get a kick out of. Well, this is another one this week that's like that. So, we're in Vayigash, which means, and he approached. The word Yigash or Yagash or Agash, it appears many, many times in the Torah in many different ways, but in this way, it's very, very specific. And all the rabbis, all the sages agree on the specificity of this, like what it means and what the picture is that God's trying to get across. So the name of the teaching is from that word approached. It's called Judah Fights for His Brothers. Now usually, I shouldn't say usually, many times in the Bible, the word approached, agash, come toward, come near, it's not the same as like approaching God. The word for approaching God is karev, like keruvim, means to approach, to come near, or the korbanot. Sacrifices are not like, we shouldn't even call them sacrifices, because the pagan world makes sacrifices, like giving up something, and so they can get something magically from God. They're not sacrifices, they're korbanot, which means to bring near. You're not bringing the sacrifice near, you're bringing you near in a sacrifice. That's its whole purpose, to come and get close to God. And then you learn. You hear, you learn, you grow, you become a better person. That's what the sacrifices were for. That was their main purpose. We call them sacrifices just so you can know what I'm talking about. Now, there is a word for sacrifice in the Bible. It's zavach. Zavach, which means literally the cutting of the throat. That's a sacrifice. But the korbanot that we are going to offer in the kingdom and that we offered previously are to bring near. And that's a different word from this word, approach. This can have a bunch of different meanings. Now the meaning is Judah fights for his brothers. He's approaching to fight. He's approaching to kill. You don't see that in the English at all, so I'll have to explain it. So we're going to read a lot of Torah today. We're going to read lots and lots of verses. Genesis 44, 18 through 45. We're going to read this whole passage. Then we're going to go back and read a whole bunch more Torah. Then Judah approached him being Yoseph, and said, "O my Lord, may your servant please speak a word in my Lord's ears, and don't be angry with your servant, because you're equal to Paro. My Lord asked his servant, saying, 'Have you a father or a brother?' And we said to my Lord, 'We have an old father and a little boy of our father's old age. Now his brother,'" that's Yoseph, "'is dead, so he alone is left of his mother, and his father loves him. Then you said to your servants, bring him down to me, so I may set eyes on him. But we said to my Lord, the boy can't leave his father. If he leaves his father will die. You said to your servants, however, unless your youngest brother comes down with you, you will not see my face again.'" Now, you notice all the ellipsis, ... See how many of them there are here? We're going to continue that on the next 2 pages. This is an enormous passage. It's almost the whole Torah portion. That's why I'm putting ... We're not going to read the whole thing. So I'm being nice to you by doing that. So let's see. You're not going to come back unless your youngest brother comes down with you. You will not see my face again. So we went up to my father, and we told him the words of my Lord. And my father said, "Go back, buy us a little food." But we said, "We can't go back. If our youngest brother is with us, then we can go down. We cannot see the man's face unless our youngest brother is with us." Then your servant, my father, said, you know that my wife bore me 2 sons. When he says my wife, he's got 4 wives. He's talking about the one he cares about, Rachel. That's the only one he cares about. And she bore him Yoseph and Benjamin. That's it. Both children of his old age. You know that my wife bore me 2 sons, and the one left me, and I said, surely he's torn to pieces, because my sons brought me a dead animal carcass, blood on his garment, and said he got ripped up by an animal. So he's surely torn to pieces, and I've not seen him since. If you also take this one from me and harm happens to him, you'll bring my gray hair down to hell in sorrow. So now, when I come to your servant, this is Judah talking again. So now, when I come to your servant, my father, and the boy isn't with us, since our father's life is bound up, knit, woven together with the boy's life, when he sees that the boy's not with us, he'll die. So your servants will bring the gray hair of our father down to Sheol in sorrow. Because your servant, talking about himself, Judah, accepted responsibility. Now what it says in Hebrew is became surety or a bondman. That's how that's translated. That's a good translation of that word. Accepted responsibility, became surety, became a bondman for the boy from my father, saying, if this is what I told my dad, if I don't bring him back to you, then my father can let me take the blame to all days. Leyamim, to all days. Lakol yamim, to all days. They translate it forever. So now, please let me remain as a slave to my Lord instead of the boy, and let the boy go up with his brothers. How can I go up to my father if the boy isn't with me? I might see the evil that would overtake my father. Then Yoseph couldn't control himself in front of everyone standing before him, and he shouted, have everyone get out! There was nobody with him when Yoseph made himself known to his brothers. Then he wept so loud that the house of Pharaoh heard. Now that'd be like me crying and you guys being way, way, way back there in that. There's a gym about 300 feet from here, that way. Like you being in that gym and you hearing me wail. That's what it means. This is a long way. It's a big deal. It's a big house. And he says, he wept so loud that the house of Pharaoh heard. And Yoseph said to his brothers, I'm Yoseph! Is my father still alive? But his brothers, they couldn't say anything because they're in shock. They're in shock. They were terrified in his presence. They're just in shock. Then Yoseph said to his brothers, please approach me. Now he uses the same word here. Judah approached him. Now he says, you guys approach me. And they approached. So now all of Israel has now approached, yes? Except for one. Who's the one who hasn't approached? Benjamin. He's back with his daddy. His what? Yes, his only real full brother. And he said, I'm your brother Yoseph, whom you sold into Egypt. Don't be grieved or angry with yourselves because you sold me here, because God sent me ahead of you to save, to preserve lives. Because the famine was in the land these 2 years. So there's already been 2 years of famine. And there are still 5 years with neither plowing nor harvesting. So there has been 7 years of good, and there has been 2 years of bad. And now there's going to be 5 more years. And in all that time, those 7 years of good and the 2 years of bad, Yoseph never sent a message to his dad saying, Daddy, I'm alive. Never. And he's the, second in command over the entirety of the biggest nation on earth. He couldn't send a runner. He couldn't send a message with an army. He could have done anything he wanted. And he never sent a message to his dad. It is weird. So he says there's still 5 more years of neither plowing nor harvesting. So God sent me ahead of you to save you a remnant on the earth. So obviously, Yoseph has got a plan. Because he had 7, 8, 9 years to send a message to his dad, and he never did it. To, let his dad feel better. So obviously he's got something up his sleeve. And I'm going to show you what he had up his sleeve in detail. I'm going to show you in detail. So he says, God sent me here to save you by a great deliverance. It wasn't you who sent me here, but God sent me here. And he's made me a father to Paro. He made me a father to Paro. He made me a father to Paro. I bet most of you never saw that before, huh? Yosef says he made me a father to Paro, and lord of all his house, and ruler over all the land of Egypt. Hurry and go up to my father and say, this is what your son Yosef says. God has made me lord of all Egypt. Come down to me, don't wait. For you shall live in the land of Goshen, and you shall be near me, and your children, and your grandchildren, your flocks, and your herds, and everything you have. I'll provide for you, I'll take care of you, for there are still 5 years of famine. Behold, your eyes see, and the eyes of my brother Benjamin see. Benjamin's back with his dad. And he says, you guys can see it.
In the spirit.
You can see it. And my brother Benjamin sees that it is my mouth which is speaking to you. Now tell my father and all my splendor in Egypt and all that you have seen, and hurry and bring my father down here. Then he fell on, oh, there is Benjamin. Then he fell on Benjamin's neck. So Benjamin has come down. So we're going to go through the whole story of how Simeon is kept hostage and Benjamin is up there, and then he tells Benjamin to come down, and they all get all this stuff that Yosef does to sift them and break them and change them and check them. He's kind of like God testing them. And it's a huge, big, long story. So he says, there's Benjamin, his brother. So all this has already happened, and now Benjamin's down with him, and he says, Benjamin, you can see I'm your brother. All the brothers can see I'm your brother. All right, so then he says he fell on his brother Benjamin's neck, and he wept, and Benjamin wept on his neck, and he kissed all his brothers, and he wept on them, and afterwards his brothers talked with him. So there's the whole story. Now, how we get there is amazing. It's just an amazing story. But it all starts with one thing, that Yosef had 9 years, basically it's 8 years, to do something, to get a message to his dad, and he never did it. And he never sent a message to his brothers. But really, his dad, Israel, is the one who needed the message. You know, he's lost Yosef. Now he might lose Benjamin. He might lose other brother. Who knows? Who knows what bad stuff is going to happen? He couldn't have sent a message saying, Daddy, I'm alive. I'm going to show you why. Well, this is the story of Yosef. Down at the bottom, he's in the pit, thrown into the pit by his brothers. Then he spends 13 years in prison. Well, about 10 years in prison and 2 years running away from a woman who's saying he raped me. And then he's lifted up and he's crying on his brothers. There's his brothers in the background in that big giant room with him, and he says, it's me, your brother Yosef. So how does he get there? Now I call this Joseph's trickery. You think Jacob was tricky? Judah was tricky? Tamar was tricky? Joseph's 10 times trickier. He is like the expert in tricky. And he sifts them and sifts them and right when you think that he's done, he comes up with another one. And then you think oh, come on, enough already. No, he comes up with another one. And another one, and another one, and another one, and another one. So what we're going to be looking at is this verse up on top. Jacob said to his sons, go down to Egypt and buy such food for us. Now this is back in the last week's Torah portion in chapter 42. Jacob said to his sons, go down to Egypt and buy food for us. So 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to Egypt. Jacob did not send Joseph's brother Benjamin, saying, I'm afraid that evil will befall him. So the sons of Israel came to buy grain, but Joseph's brothers came and bowed down to him. And here's where we start seeing why Joseph did what he did. His brothers came in and they bowed down to him. When Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them, but he disguised himself to them and he spoke harshly to them. Now this is the setup for the next several chapters. By the way, this is the longest narrative in the whole Bible, this story about what he does with his brothers. The last 4 Torah portions of Genesis are all about Yosef. The last 4 Torah portions. Part of 3 Torah portions ago, the last half of it. The next 2 are all about him. And then comes next week's, which is partially about him. So he takes up most of the book of Genesis, Yoseph. And him messing with his brothers takes up the biggest part of that. So we're going to go with and through all this narrative of why he messes with the brothers. But when it says that they came in initially and they bowed down to him, this gives us the clue. Remember when he was 17 years old? Well, let me shoot forward. How old was he when he was lifted up out of prison? 30. Very good. Thank you, Ethan. He was 30. So when he was 17, he saw these dreams that his brothers, all the brothers, would come bow down to him, and his mother and his father would come bow down to him. Yes? No way his mother can come bow down to him. She's dead. Right? But that's what God said. Your mother and your father and your 11 brothers are going to come bow down to you. So now he spends the next year sifting them so that they will come, all of them will come bow down. Jacob has to come bow down to him. But Jacob's up there in Israel. So that's why he didn't send a message. He has to get him down with the brothers to bow down. All of them together. And he's got to do it with them having a good attitude. And he has to do it with Jacob having a good attitude without fear. So let's go to 42, 8 through 9, and then 13 through 14. And we're going to start showing you Joseph's trickery. He said to them, this is number 1. Now I've numbered how many times he sifts them or tests them. Before we do this, there's a number in the Bible that means testing. Which one is it? 40. Okay, let's go through this. Number 1, he said to them, where have you come from? And they said, from the land of Canaan to buy food. But Yoseph had recognized his brothers, though they didn't recognize him. Yoseph remembered the dreams he had about them. So he remembers, and he says, you're spies. That's what he says in response to him remembering they have to come and bow down. They've already bowed down, didn't they? We saw it in 1 through 7. They came in, they all bowed down. And his answer to them, oh, please don't hurt us. Oh, please, we need food, like all the rest of the world has been doing. He says to them, you're spies. Why? Because Benjamin's not there to bow down, and neither is Jacob. So he's got to start doing something so that God will fulfill this prophecy. Now, I don't mean manipulation. I mean he has seen God's plan, and that's what he's doing. He's not making up stuff as he goes along. He's doing what God wants him to do because God has shown him a plan. So he said, you're spies. You've come to look at the undefended parts of the land. But they said, your servants are 12 brothers. Now there's 11 of them. There's 10 of them here, plus him. And there's another one. Your servants are 12 brothers, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And behold, the youngest is with our father today, and one is no longer alive. And Yoseph said to them, no, it's like I said, you're spies. He is just unmovable. Number 2, 42, 15 through 17. By this you will be, and there it is, tested. By this you will be tested. The thing I hate about God the most is that he tests us every day. I hate that. I mean, I'm a father. I would have done a better job than him. I wouldn't test people the way he does. I would have done it better. I hate that about God. But he is so perfect in his manipulations of people and things. He's like the master chess player, but he plays 1,000 chess games all at the same time, and he always wins. Because he knows every single move that's right. And he does this with everybody, Jews. He does not do this with people who don't love him and don't care about him. He doesn't. They're on their own. They are on their own. The thing that sets us apart, like we say, oh, thank you, Lord, for giving the Torah. You chose us from all the nations, and we don't live like them, right? In the Aleinu? Thank you that you've chose us, that we're different, that we don't suffer what they suffer. Our lot is not like their lot. Our life is not like their life. You chose us to be different, yeah? Well, he chose us to test us. So if you don't want to be tested, live like the Gentiles, and you won't be tested. Everything will be a party all day, every day, and the devil will just kick your butt, and that'll be the end of it, and it'll be done. But the Jewish people, from the beginning, from Abraham, have been tested by God. In Genesis 22, what's the first thing God did with Abraham when Isaac was born? Well, actually 37 years after he was born. He says, and God tested Abraham. Right? Well, this is the same word. By this he tested them. By this you will be tested. So, what I feel like is I better embrace the testing. That's why I hate that prayer that says, may my soul be like dust to everybody. Because you don't get your soul to be like dust to everybody unless you get pushed down farther and farther and farther. That's testing. I hate it. Hate it. But I love that that's what makes us different as Jews. Jews and Gentiles who are grafted into that. Love it. That I love. By this you will be tested, by the life of Pharaoh. You shall not leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Now he does the second one. He says, send one of you. I want one of you to go back and have him get your brother while you guys are confined. So then he throws them all in prison. How can they send one if they're all in prison? No, it doesn't say all but one. It says, so he put them all together. Kulanu, all together in prison for 3 days. No, they've all been put in prison. But he says, I want you to send one of them to go get your little brother. How can they go get it? So what he does, he stuck him in the oven to cook. He stuck him in the prison for 3 days. Now go in there and think about it. You go to your room and you go think about this. You decide which one you're going to send. That's what it means. So now they're stewing in prison. This is his second test. For 3 days. All right, number 3. Yoseph said to them on the third day, do this and live. Let one of your brothers be confined. Now he's going to confine one of the brothers in prison. What? But as for you, all of you, go carry grain for the famine of your houses. I thought he said you were going to send one and stick us all, the rest of us in prison. He's not doing what he says. And he's not doing what he says on purpose. He's saying one thing and doing another. And then he's saying one thing and doing another. Why? To test them. So, next time you complain and you fetch that your word says this and that, don't be so literal. I mean, really. God can do anything he wants to anybody he wants, anytime he wants. And that includes us. So don't be so literal. He's not constrained by anything at all. And if he wants to tell Yosef to say A and do B, he's going to say A and do B if that's what it takes. So this is the third one. It's a lie. Now this always makes Christians and Messianic Jews and Gentiles who just don't even know God at all very, very nervous. Anytime the concept comes up of God lied. God lies. But you better believe he lies. In Hebrew, the word lie means false. It means like nothing, like vanity, translated vanity. And this world is called the world of lies. This world is called the world of lies in Judaism. And everything else, Judaism, is truth. It's emet. But if you don't think that God will lie to you, run a scam on you, play a game with you, mess with you, say one thing and then do another to mess with us, you are wrong. He does it all the time. He's done it in my life many, many, many times. And every time he's done it, and I tell people, they go, oh, no, God never lies. Oh, yes, he does. He absolutely does. I know what you're thinking. Is God a man that he should lie? Right? I know that's what you're thinking. No, he's not a man that he should lie. He lies like God lies. to sift and to test us and to make us into what he wants to be. We are so stubborn and so stiff-necked. And you know what juking is? You ever heard juke? You ever heard that word? Juke? When my kid was in middle school, when Elon was in middle school, they would throw frisbees and they'd throw footballs and stuff like that, and like to look like you're going one way and then turn real fast and go the other way. That's called a juke. God jukes all the time. You think he's going to do this, he turns real fast and does something else. Why? Because we're good at juking. We're good at it. Yes, Lord. Oh, Lord, I love thee so much, O thou King. And then we do some stupid thing or say some stupid thing. That's juking. Why don't we just do what we say? Because we are stupid and evil and horrible. So God responds to us in kind. Now, I have verses to back this up, but I'm only going to give you one, and you can go find out on your own if you don't believe me. You can go do the research on your own if you don't think God lies. Here's one. It's in 2 Samuel 22. And he says, to the righteous, I show myself righteous. To the merciful, I show myself merciful. To the twisted, that's what it says in Hebrew. To the twisted, I show myself twisted. God lies. God showed me this more than 25 years ago. And every single time I've taught it or said it in a teaching or told somebody about it, I get resistance, which I understand. But why don't you go do the research on your own and find out how tricky God is? Well, here, if you can get a hold of this pattern that God made Yoseph do, it should make it easier for you to see God like this. You got him in a box, man. If you don't think God can lie, you got him in a box. So he says, I'm going to put all of you in prison except one. I'm going to send him back to go get your brother. Then he throws them all in prison. He lies. And then he says, okay, now let one of your brothers be confined in prison, and the rest of you go. But as for you, go carry grain for the famine to your houses, and bring your youngest brother to me, so that your words may be verified, truth. And they did it. And they said to each other, look what they say to each other on the way. We are guilty. Now the lying and the trickery is starting to show up. The fruit of it is starting to show up. When they say, we are guilty, they're like, oh my God, we're not guilty about this. We're guilty about what we did with Yoseph. And they don't know that Yoseph can hear their words because they think he's just some pagan Egyptian. But there's an interpreter. And so the interpreter, because there's an interpreter, they're like, well, he can't understand us, so let's just talk Hebrew to each other. We are guilty about that, our brother Yoseph. So now it's starting to sink in. Now the work that God is doing on them is starting to get to their heart. And that's the whole purpose of this thing. We're guilty about our brother, for we saw the tsar, the distress of his soul, when he pleaded with us, but we didn't listen. This is why this tsar has come on us. Now there's a Jewish phrase, a Hebrew phrase from the scriptures that talks about the bottom line of how God judges and acts with all human beings. It's called midan keneged midan, measure for measure. Christians recognize this in the words of Jesus, in the words of Yeshua, where he says, the measure with which you measure it will be measured back to you. Yes? Yes. Okay, that's what he's saying. He's just talking Jewish words, midan keneged midan. And they all recognize, okay, you're saying midan keneged midan. That's what you're saying, and that's how God deals with the world. They are saying this. Our brother Yoseph saw that we put sar, birth pangs on him. So that's why the birth pangs are coming on us. The same exact measure. So it's starting to sink in. Reuben said, didn't I tell you? So now, one always rises up and says, I told you so. Idiot. Reuben said, didn't I tell you, don't sin against the boy, and you wouldn't listen? Now his blood is required. Don't think he's being righteous. He's not. He's just trying to, wiggle out of the responsibility. And then it says, they didn't know that Yoseph understood because there was an interpreter there. Then he turned away from them and he wept. But when he returned to them and spoke to them, he took Simeon in front of their eyes and bound him and threw him in prison. This is exactly what they did to their brother, isn't it? They threw him in a pit with snakes and scorpions in it. The pit had snakes and scorpions. Every single sage says this. So Reuben, he was so righteous, he's the one who said to throw him in the pit. So wouldn't snakes and scorpions kill the kid? You'd think. So, don't think he was so righteous. He wasn't. So he takes Simeon from them and bound him before their eyes. Genesis 42, 25 through 28, number 4. Fourth testing. Yoseph gave orders to fill their bags with grain. Now they're getting ready to go back, and he says, fill their bags up with grain. This is, by the way, not one bag per guy. This is hundreds of bags, hundreds and hundreds of bags. And to return every man's money in his sack. So he says, let's make them believe that they stole the money back. No, not them, one of them. So now they're going to turn on whoever is the thief on the way back. They're going to turn on him, right? He's setting one of the kids up to be judged. I'm going to say that again. God is setting up all of Israel for one of the kids to be judged. Now, if you think that's cruel, all testing is cruel. It's just another test. But that's what he's doing. That's his plan. Return every man's money in his sack. So they loaded the donkeys with the grain and they left. But when one opened his sack to give his donkey feed, he saw his money. And behold, it was in the mouth of the sack. And he said to his brothers, my money's been returned, and look, it's in my sack. Well, why didn't you give the money? I did, I really did. Then why is it in your sack? Liar. Why are you doing this to us? Liar. So he's really messing with these guys. Then their hearts sank, and trembling, they said to each other, what is this that God has done to us? Not Yosef, not us, God. Every single thing they say shows them moving closer and closer and closer to one word. Anybody know what it is? Teshuvah. Repentance. They're getting closer and closer to it, but they're not there yet. We're only number 4. Now, meanwhile, back at the ranch, back in Israel, this is what's going on. When they came to their father Jacob in the land of Canaan, they told him everything that had happened to them. And their father Jacob said to them, you've deprived me of my sons. Who is this talking? Jacob or Israel? Jacob. So he's in the flesh. He's not in the spirit. You've deprived me of my sons. Yosef is gone and Simeon is gone. And you take Benjamin too? That's all he can. He's just self-pitying. He's stuck in his self-pity and his, oh my God, life is so horrible. Then Reuben spoke to his father. Now Reuben, he acts like a big mocker. He's the oldest boy. Listen, I know what to do. Reuben says, Dad, put my 2 sons to death if I don't bring him back to you. I'll bring Simeon back to you. Don't worry. Put me responsible. And you think, boy, that's amazing, right? No. You may put my 2 sons to death if I don't bring him back to you. Put him in my care, and I will return him. But Jacob said, my son will not go down with you. I always read it like this. My son will not go down with you. It's not like that. It's this. My son's not going to go down with you. He'll go down with somebody else, not you. You suck, Reuben. So he tries to sound like he's the oldest kid, like he'll take responsibility. And on the surface, it sounds real good, but it's garbage. And Jacob can see it. This isn't right. This isn't right. And so he says, no, he ain't going to go down with you. For his brother is dead, and he alone is left. If harm happens to him on the journey, you're going to bring my gray hair down to hell in sorrow. When they had finished eating the grain which they brought from Egypt. So I don't know how long this was. It could have been months, because they got a lot of grain. And they've gone through the whole supply. There's no food in Canaan anywhere. The whole world has to go to Egypt to get food from, by the way, one of the 8 wonders of the world called the labyrinth. You ever heard of it? You ever heard the labyrinth? The labyrinth was right next to one of the small pyramids in Egypt. It was the granaries that Joseph created. And there's 1,000 rooms underground. And then a whole bunch of them up above ground. And it's a labyrinth, it's a maze. It's like really, really complicated. And they've been, in the last few years, excavating it. Absolutely phenomenal. So this is a huge, huge thing. The whole world's got to get grain from him. And he figured out how to do that. So he says, when they finished eating the grain which they brought from Egypt, their father said, go back and buy us a little food. He doesn't say go back and get your brother and bring Benjamin so the guy won't get crazy. He doesn't say any of that. He says, go back and buy us a little food. In other words, let's stick a Band-Aid on this corpse. And who says this? Jacob or Israel? Really? Yes, but who's been talking all this time? So at the beginning of his conversation, he calls him Jacob. So he's not necessarily in the spirit. And he says, go back and get us a little food. Now Judah speaks. Now the whole Torah portion that we're doing says, Yehuda, Vayigash Yehuda, Yoseph, and approached Judah to Yoseph. And the whole story turns. The whole story turns today in this Torah portion. It's been bad for 20 years, and now Judah approaches Yosef, and boink, everything goes good. Well, Judah also approached Jacob back in Egypt. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Judah also approached Jacob. And he says, Judah said to his father, send the boy with me, not with Reuben, with me. And I'll be surety. Now the word is e'ervanu. E'ervanu, from e'erev, which means surety, bondman, to be knit or woven together with somebody. It means a down payment. Remember we looked last week at the down payment, at the cord and the seal that Perez asked from Judah? And the seal was the down payment of the Holy Spirit. The down payment of that's the same word. Erev. Surety, down payment. From arav means to mix, to interchange, to be surety, to give a pledge, a down payment, a dowry, to be liable for another's debt. Reuben didn't say that. Reuben said, you can kill my 2 kids. What a jerk. Judah doesn't say, kill my children. He says, I will be, isn't that awful? I will be a down payment. Not my kids. I'll be the down payment for him. And you can demand him back from me. If I don't bring him to you, then I will have sinned against you for all days. Now the rabbis say when he says for all days, it means even in the kingdom. In the Acharit Yamim, the afterward days, the last days, the day of the Lord. All days. Say that again? No, he said this to Jacob. Jacob is saying, Judah is saying this to Israel. Okay, yes, I hear what you're saying. Very good. If I don't bring him back to you, then I will have sinned against you for all days. Then Israel said to him. So right when Judah approaches, same exact thing happens. It flips from bad to good. Now it's good. Israel, he's spirit instead of flesh. Yes?
Like in regards to spirit and flesh, is it because Judah is willing to humble himself and Reuben wasn't?
Yes, the question was, is the reason that it flipped from bad to good is because Judah humbled himself, but Reuben didn't. Exactly. Exactly. He's the oldest brother. He's the biggest. He's the big macher. He didn't humble himself. Judah did. We're going to get to that in a bit. Thank you, Becca. So then Israel said to them, take some of the best products of the land in your bags as a gift. As a gift. A little balsam, a little honey, labdanum resin, myrrh, some pistachio nuts, and almonds. And take double the money. You brought the money the first time, we'll say, I don't know, $50,000 per person. Now bring $100,000. So you'll pay him for the first time, and you'll pay him for the second time. Plus a gift. This is Israel, not Jacob. Take double the money in your hand. He's giving. He's not taking, he's giving. And take back in your hand the money that was returned in the opening of your sacks. Perhaps it was just a mistake. We don't know. May God Almighty, now he gets God involved. May God Almighty grant you compassion in the sight of the man. So the men took the gift, and they took double the money in their hand. Now, they come back down to Egypt. Number 5. Genesis 43, 16 through 19. When Yoseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to his house steward. Now look at me. It's going to go good now, right? They brought all the money back. They've searched their hearts. They said, we are the ones who brought this on our brother, so God's bringing it back on us, right? And so they brought Benjamin, did exactly what Joseph said. Now everything should flip and be good. Yes? You would think, no, you are correct, sir. No. When Yoseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to his house steward, bring the men into the house and slaughter an animal and make preparations, for the men are to dine with me at noon. It's going to be hard for you to follow what I'm about to say. So I'm going to try to make it as understandable as I can. The rabbis say, never pray for money. Unless it's like a corporate need. Never ask God for money, ever. Seek the kingdom, and it'll come. Does that sound familiar? Yeshua said the same thing. Seek first his kingdom, and everything will be added to you. Okay, the rabbis say this for a reason. It's this. In Proverbs, it says, the one who runs after money, money surely will make itself what? Good. Wings and fly away. For the one who runs after money, it will surely make itself wings and fly away. Do they really? They have an emoji for that, I was just told. So, it also says in Proverbs, give me neither poverty nor riches. Why would you say, God, don't give me riches? Because it says, if you're given poverty, you'll just get upset and curse God. But if you're given riches, you'll get arrogant and curse God and forget about him. So either way, it's the same problem. Joseph was tested in every way a man can be tested. Just like Yeshua. It says in Hebrews, he was tested in every way a man can be tested. Yes? And he came out perfect. Tamim. With perfection. He came out perfect from the testing. Same thing happened with Yosef. He was thrown in the pit by his brother. Now, he started out as a jerk. Don't think he wasn't. He was an arrogant little jerk. Arrogant, the rabbis say he used to, sit in front of the mirror and curl his hair. That's what a jerk he was. And do his makeup. So, I guess it started way back then. So anyway, he was a jerk, and he was thrown in the pit by his brothers, left for dead, sold into slavery, was in before he was in prison, he was a servant in a house. He was a house servant, like 12 years a slave. He was a house servant. And then the richest woman in Egypt said, he tried to rape me, because she was coming on to him and he wouldn't give in. He would not give in. Day after day after day after day this went on and he wouldn't give in. He was being tested every way a man can be tested, and he never gave in. And then he's thrown in prison for 13 years. And still he doesn't sin. He never gets discouraged. He never gives up. And then he's lifted up and he's given more money than anybody who has ever lived. And he still didn't sin. So, what I'm going to say to you, you may not like it, but don't ever, ever pray for money unless it's a specific thing that God has shown you that you're supposed to have, that He wants you to have, that it's in God's will and order for you to have, or for somebody else to have. Don't ever pray for money. It has to be like that. If you do it, it's going to cause trouble. Eileen and I don't pray for money unless it's a specific thing. We never have. Unless it's a specific thing that God has shown us that is supposed to be for us. Or we don't pray for money. We just let God fill the need while we seek the kingdom. Goes up and down, we do better sometimes than others, but that's been our practice. So, he says, bless them. This is a test. It sounds really good, doesn't it? Bring them into the house, into my house. Slaughter an animal. Make preparations for the men to dine. They're going to dine with me, the second highest guy in the whole world, at noon. We're going to eat lunch together. Sounds good, doesn't it? Because it's a test. He's giving them to test them. So they did as Yoseph said, but the men were afraid because they were brought to Joseph's house. They don't know he's going to bless them. All they know is he said, bring them into my house. Because of the money that was returned in our sacks the first time. This is what they're saying. Oh my God, he's bringing us into his house because the money that, we gave him the money, but it turned up in our sacks. So they're terrified. He may attack us and overpower us and take us as slaves with our donkeys. I don't know why that's there. With our donkeys. What is that there? I mean, that's an important thing to them. So they're not, this isn't a good thing. This is a bad thing. This is a test. Now, number 6, Genesis 43:20-23. So they approached Joseph's house steward and spoke to him. Oh, my Lord, we indeed came down the first time to buy food. We opened our sacks, and each man's money was in the mouth of the sack. And we brought it back. Look, we brought it back. We got double now. We got the money for this time and then the money for the last time. And we're giving it to you. And he says, Shalom Aleichem. What a lie. He lies through his teeth to them. This is the house steward. Shalom Aleichem, Al Tira, don't be afraid. Your God, he's lying about God. Your God and the God of your fathers has given you treasure in your sacks. Your money was in my possession. Is that true? No, they stuck it back in the sacks. This is a straight up lie. Now, why would the steward say this? Yeah, but why? How did he come up with that? No, he didn't come up with it. Yosef told him to do it. He's the house steward. He has to do what Yosef tells him. He's a slave. He has very little authority except what Yosef tells him to do. Right? So Yosef told him, I'll tell you what, tell them you had the money when they come to you, because they're going to be freaking out. Tell them you had the money. Let's see how they react.
So they're trying to catch him in a lie?
No. He's sifting them by telling them a lie. It's the same thing. It's them lying, Yosef lying to the brothers to sift them. It's the same thing. So he tells the steward to say, your money was in my possession. It's a lie. It wasn't in his possession. Then he brought Shimeon out to them. So now all 12 brothers are there. Yes? The 11 brothers plus Yosef, they're all there. They're in the house. Now he's going to test them again. Number 7, 43:24 through 33. When Yosef came home, he brought into the house to him the gift which was in their hand. So now he's got this big procession of all this stuff that they brought. Pistachio and galbanum and myrrh and all these amazing things that they brought from Israel. Which I wonder, there's no food in Israel, but they're bringing pistachio nuts and almonds. That's not food. So all of them, bow down to the ground before him. Yes? Yes. Just like his dream. So you'd think he'd say, there it is, we're done. Nope. They're missing Jacob. Jacob hasn't come down to bow. So it can't be, it's not done. There's more. So he says, as he raised his eyes and he saw his brother Benjamin, he said, may God be gracious to you, my son. And then Yosef hurries out. He enters his chamber. He weeps there. Then he washed his face and he came back out and he controlled himself and he said, serve the meal. And this is an amazing trick that he does here. Then they served him by himself. So Yosef is off by himself. Now what it says in the text is he served the Egyptians by themselves because Jews are such a low, disgusting people that Egyptians won't even eat with them. They're so disgusting to the Egyptians. But Yosef is there. He's off by himself. He's eating by himself. Then they served him by himself and Joseph's brothers by themselves. Now they were seated before him from the firstborn, Reuben, according to his birthright, to the youngest, Benjamin. How would he know to tell the servant? How would the servant know to seat them according to the order? Because Yosef told them the order. They don't know any of this. So they're like, oh my God, he's magic. And so he plays on that, on the next test. Yeah, you better believe I'm magic. Number 8, then he took portions to them from his own table, but to Benjamin gives him 5 times as much as the other brothers, and they drank freely with him. So what is he doing? Why does he send Benjamin 5 times as much? To see if the brothers will be jealous. Exactly. To see if the brothers will be jealous like they were of Yosef, the youngest kid. They turn on Yosef because it says they were jealous of him. Because he had that beautiful cloak from Daddy. Yeah? From Daddy Warbucks. And so, okay, let's see how they treat Benjamin, who gets blessed by his father. Remember, he says, may God bless you, Beni, my son. Right. So he's setting himself up as Benjamin's father. And he's giving him 5 times as much as all the others. And let's see if they get jealous. This is a big one, number 8. Now, number 9. So now he's going to play on their, oh my God, he's magic. He's the magic man. Second most powerful guy in the world, and he's full of magic. Then he told his house steward, now, fill the men's sacks back up with food, as much as they can carry, and put each man's money in the opening of his sack again. He does it again.
So would that be double now?
Yes, it's double again. But now he says, and in addition to that, put my cup, that silver cup that I got, in the opening of the sack of the youngest. Who's the youngest? Benjamin. So now he has set Benjamin up 3 times for them to turn on Benjamin. You think God doesn't set people up and play games? You don't know God. God lies. And he lies and he lies and he lies and he lies until he gets what he desires, which is us to be like him. So he says, put my cup, that silver cup, in the opening of the sack of the youngest, and his money for the grain. So they are going to turn on Benjamin, poor little Benjamin. And he did as Yosef told him. As soon as it was light, the men were sent away. They had left the city. They weren't far away when Yosef said to his house steward, "Up, follow the men. When you overtake them, tell them, 'Why have you repaid evil for good?'" You think he's talking about the cup? No, he's talking about what they did to him. Remember? Midan keneged midan. Why did you repay evil for good? You're still doing it. Is this not that from which my Lord drinks, and which he does indeed do magic with? My magic cup? And they said to him, why is my Lord saying this? Look, the money which we found in the opening of our sacks, we brought back to you. What are we going to do? Steal a silver cup worth, a billionth of what we brought back to you, to my Lord's house? With whomever it is found, now watch what happens here. With whomever it is found, he shall die, and then we will all become my Lord's slaves. And so he says, okay, we're going to do exactly that. He with whom it is found will be my slave, and the rest will be innocent. What? No, that's not what we said. We said, the one who has the cup will die, and the rest of us will become slaves. Yes, that's what we're going to do. All of you will be innocent, except the one who has the cup, and he will be my slave. Wait, what? You're not saying what we're saying. I bet you never saw that before, did you? This is the third time that they say, yes, just like that, and then they flip it and say something else. This is God lying. But this one's really clear. It'll be just as you have said. He with whom it is found will be my slave. Not what we said. And the rest will be innocent. Not what we said. Each man opened up his sack, and he searched beginning with the oldest. Now, why does he do this? It's getting closer and closer and closer and all of them like, oh God, thank you. It's not with me. I bet it's with that little jerk Benjamin. And it's like, the suspense is killing him. And it finally gets down to the last one. God, this is just awful. It gets down to the last one. He searched beginning with the oldest, ending with the youngest, and the cup was found in Benjamin's sack. So they tear their clothes, they do kariah in grief, and when each man had loaded his donkey, they returned to the city. So what are they returning to the city to? For Benjamin to be killed and for them to be slaves? Or for all and to be innocent? For them to be innocent and Benjamin to be a slave? Or for what they said, Benjamin to be killed and all of them to be enslaved? Which one is it? Is it what they said or what Yosef said? Yosef is a lot more merciful than they are. Well, let's see. So, they load up their donkeys, they go back to the city. Number 10. When Judah and his brothers came to Joseph's house, they fell down to the ground before him. Yosef said, they what? This is the third time they've bowed. What is this thing that you've done? Do you not know that a man like me can do magic? What a lie. So Judah said, what can we say to my Lord? We're done. We're done. God has found out the guilt of your servants. He sifted them 10 times. And so now Judah, the mouthpiece, the good mouthpiece, says, God did all this because we were guilty from 29 years ago. We were guilty 29 years ago. And God waited all this time. And now he found it out. He's brought it to the surface. Behold, we are my Lord's slaves, both we and the one with whom the cup is found. We're all your slaves. All of us. Nobody's going to die. But he said, no, far be it from, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. The man in whose possession the cup has been found, he's going to be my slave. He doesn't let up even now. So he's still trying to turn them against Yosef. And so now he's done testing them. But as for you, you guys go up to your father in shalom. And now we come to the Torah portion. And Judah approached. And now everything flips. So you had to know all those 10 testings just to get up to know why it says, and Judah approached. So the rabbis say this. He approached in 3 ways. He approached with humility. He humbled himself. He approached with kind words. And he approached with war. If none of those 2 worked, he's going to destroy Egypt. He's going to go to war for his brother, if that's what it takes. Why? Because it's his brother. And he didn't do that with Yoseph, so he's sure going to do it with Benjamin. And so that's why everything now switches. So, what's the number of testing? 10. So here's some scriptures that have the number 10 as testing. Here's the big one that you all should know. Let's do this in Hebrew. See the red Hebrew? Let's do this. This is from the Passover Haggadah. Ready? Elu eser makot. These are the 10 plagues. The 10 testings. The 10 makot means a stripe, a whip. Whoosh, whoosh. These are the 10 whippings. Dam, Tzfardea, Kinim, Arov, Dever, Shechin, Barad, Arbe, Choshech, and Makot HaBekorot. These are the 10 whippings, the 10 testings. Leviticus 16, a permanent statute for you. In the 7th month, test yourself. Put yourself under testing. Fast. For the whole day. No food, no water. That's us testing ourselves. Disciplining ourselves. Same thing. And it's on the 10th day of the 7th month. Numbers 14. God says, you've put me to the test these 10 times. Ooh, that's not good. That's the Jewish people spanking God 10 times. Testing God 10 times. I know what you're thinking. Aren't we supposed to test God like the fleece? The fleece is not a good thing. The fleece that Gideon did, not a good thing. It's a stupid thing. God honored it just because he needed it, but it was not a good thing. Job 10, how long will you torment me and crush me with words? These 10 times you've insulted me. You know, you're not even ashamed to wrong me. Even if I've done wrong, my wrong is with me. What are you banging on me for? So, a whole lot more. Here's a good one, 1 Kings. Take for yourself 10 pieces of a garment that he was wearing. The prophet Achiah took hold of the cloak which was on him, ripped it into 12 pieces, gave 10 of them to Yeroboam. Take 10 of these pieces for yourself. This is what God says. I'm going to tear the kingdom away from the hand of Solomon and give you 10 tribes. The other 2 will go to Solomon. Testing, 10. And there's other, like this. By the way, today, what's the date on the Hebrew calendar today in Tevet? I believe it's the 6th. 7th. Okay, thank you. Today's the 7th. In 3 days is the worst day of the worst month. 10/10. The day that the decree went out to destroy Jerusalem. 10/10. Now in the 9th year of his reign, on the 10th day of the 10th month, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came, he and all his army, against Jerusalem. He camped against it, built a siege around. So this is the day on which Babylon went out against Jerusalem. It's also the day on which the Romans went out against Jerusalem. Bad, bad, bad day in 3 days. It's a fast day. Nehemiah 4, let's skip that one. Esther 3, let's skip that one. Esther 9, in Shushan the Jews killed the 10 sons of Haman. 10 is bad. 10 is testing. Okay, that's enough of that. No, except for one. Ezekiel 38. You know about Gog and Magog? How many kingdoms come up against Israel and Jerusalem? 10. Set your face toward Gog of the land of Magog, prince of Rosh and Meshech and Tuval, and prophesy against him and say, I'm against you, Gog. I will turn you around, put hooks in your jaws, bring you out. Persia, Cush, Put, Gomer, and Beit Togarmah, all 10 are going to come. And then we have a prophecy in Daniel about the 10 toes of the beast's kingdom. Guess who they are? Gog, Magog, Rosh, Meshech, Tuval, the 10 kings. Daniel 2, as the 10 toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of clay, some of the kingdom will be strong, some will be fragile. They'll combine in their seed, that means intermarriage, but they won't adhere to each other. They won't work together well. Just like iron doesn't combine with pottery. I kept looking in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast. Who's the fourth beast? Uh-oh. First beast is Babylon. Second beast is? Thank you, Joe. Medo-Persia. Third beast is? Greece. Thank you. Fourth beast is? Rome. Edom, or Rome. I kept looking in the night visions, and behold, fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, extremely strong. It had large iron teeth that devoured and crushed, different from all the other beasts that were before it. It had how many horns? 10 horns. Those are the 10 toes. Those are the 10 kings. It's bad. Now, Revelation 2, it brings all of this down into a thimble and says, don't fear for what you're about to suffer, the birth pangs. Behold, the devil will throw some of you into prison so that you will be tested and have tsar 10 days. It's always 10 days, always 10. Now, concerning and Judah approached, this is what Rashi says. You are like Paro. That's what Judah says. He approached and he says, you are like Paro. You are esteemed in my eyes like Paro. This is its simple meaning. Its midrashic meaning, though, is a little harder. You will ultimately be punished with sara'at, leprosy, because of him, just as Paro was punished because of my great-grandmother Sarah for the one night that he detained her. Who was the Paro who detained Sarah? Say it again. Thank you, Lynn. Avimelech. Avimelech. So he said, I hit him with leprosy, so you're going to get hit with leprosy. Another explanation. Just as Pharaoh issued decrees and doesn't carry them out, in other words, he lies. He says one thing, but he does another. Now, Judah is talking to Joseph, and he says, you're just like Pharaoh to me. You lie. You say one thing, but you do another. Just as Pharaoh issued decrees and doesn't carry them out, makes promises, doesn't fulfill them, so do you. Now, this is the setting of an eye, concerning which you said that you wanted to set your eye upon Benjamin. This is hard to figure out if you haven't studied with me for a while. So we're going to skip that. Don't worry about it. But do worry about this, that he said, you lie. You're just like Paro. You lie, just like God. That's what he's saying. Another explanation. For like you, so is Paro. If you provoke me, I will kill you and your master. So now he's coming at him with war. Why? To defend his brother Benjamin. And this is the big difference. He didn't defend Joseph. None of them did. But in time to come, Judah will fight for Ephraim. Judah will fight for Joseph. Bereshit Rabbah and Yehuda approached. This is what it means when Ruach HaKodesh said through Solomon, wisdom gives strength to the wise. He said it in reference to Yoseph HaTzadik, Yoseph the righteous. Rabbi Yochanan said, at the time that Yoseph took Benjamin and said to his brothers, he in whose possession the goblet was found shall be my slave, Yehuda said, you're going to seize Benjamin and you want there to be peace in the father's house? Are you crazy? Two ways to understand this. Number one, you told us go back in peace to your father. How can there be peace if you take my brother? And number two, you think that we will act peacefully towards you, Yosef, if you seize Benjamin? We're going to fight for him like we didn't do the first time. We learned our lesson. We're going to fight to get him back. Immediately, Yehuda got angry and roared. Now, this part is a picture. It is not to be taken literally. It is a midrash. It's a parable. Immediately, Yehuda got angry and roared with a loud voice. Why does it say this? Because Yehuda is a lion, and he will roar out of Zion at the coming of Messiah. That's what it says 3 times in the Bible. He will roar out of Zion when the Messiah comes. So he roared with a huge roar, and his voice went 400 parsa. Now that's a 40-day walk, because you can walk 10 parsa a day. That's what it says in the Talmud. So it's a 40-day walk until Hushim, son of Dan, heard it. He was deaf. How could he hear it? But he heard it. Why? Because he's roaring out of Zion, and the deaf will hear. It says that in Isaiah several times, that when the Messiah comes, he will talk, he will send Torah, and the deaf will hear. Job said of them, of these 2 guys, Hushim and Judah, the roar of a lion and the sound of a lion cub. A big lion and a little lion. Both Yehuda and Dan are compared to a lion. The tribe of Dan is compared to a lion, and the tribe of Judah is compared to a lion, which is why it says this. The teeth of lion cubs are confounded. These are Yoseph's mighty men, that when Yehuda got angry, all of their teeth fell out. Why? Why does it say that? What its meaning is this, that he is so ready to defend his brother Benjamin that one guy says, I will kill all of Egypt for this. And they believed him. Why? Because later on in the Torah, doesn't it say, one of you will put 10,000 to flight? Yes? Talking about the Jews? That's why it says that. He's ready to fight. This is the city of Jerusalem. See that blue line? On the bottom of the blue line, underneath the blue line, is Judah. What's on top of the blue line? The land of Benjamin. Where's Jerusalem? In Benjamin, not in Judah. It's a capital of Judah. It's not even in Judah. It's in Benjamin, his little brother. He is so willing to fight for Judah. Why? Because he's the Messiah, fighting for Zion to be put as the capital of Judah, the king. Remember, he's going to produce the kings, King David and King Messiah. Judah is. Yes? They're not going to live in Judah. Where are they going to live? Benjamin. That's where Jerusalem is. So that's what he's fighting for. And there you can see the lamb. Benjamin is right above the land of Judah. Benjamin is in a pink, and Judah is in a brighter pink. Judah says to his father Israel, send the boy with me. I'll be surety for him. Ervenu. Surety for him, to him. You may demand him back from me. If I don't bring him to you alive, let me take the blame for all days, even into the kingdom. The Jews, here's the bottom line. The Jews is Judah, yes? Well, you say Jew, Yehuda, Yehudim, named after Judah. Judaism, we call it Judaism because it's the way of the Yehudim, the way of the Jews. It's that simple. Don't make any more of it than that. It's simple, simple, simple. The way of the Jews, Yehudim, Yehudot, Judaism. So, if you look at this in picture form, which I want to do, what it shows us is that the Jews, Yehuda, approaches Yoseph, right? And he fights for Benjamin. The Jews fight. Well, what's in Benjamin? What's in Benjamin? Jerusalem. The Jews, Judah is going to fight to get Jerusalem, that mountain. You're going to fight for it. So I want to read this in picture form. So the Jews and Yeshua said to his father, God, Send the temple. Here's the verse we're looking at. You look like you forgot what we're looking at. So Judah said to his father Israel, Judah says to Israel, send the boy with me, I'll be surety for him. You can demand him back from me if I don't bring him to you alive. I'll bear that blame for all days. I want to look at those verses in picture form. Here's how I see it.
Is that a vow?
This is a vow, yes. Thank you. So the Jews, Judah, and Yeshua said salvation is from the Jews. So the Jews and Yeshua said to his father God, send the temple, Judaism, Torah with me, and I'll be liable for it. Send it with me. Send me with it. I'll be liable for it. I'll take that debt. You may demand it back from me, Lord, if I don't bring Torah and all of its children back to you alive. Let me take the blame in the kingdom if I don't do this. You get it? Let me take Judaism. I'll take that surety. I'll take that bond. I'll take that vow on me. Then the Jews and Yeshua approached God to fight. Vayigash Yehudah. And Judah approached to fight and said, oh my Lord, don't be angry with your servant because you're the king of the whole earth. Can you see him talking to God? Saying, I'm ready to fight for Judaism. I'm ready to fight for Torah. I'm ready to fight for Jerusalem. Now in Isaiah chapter 40 it says, get yourself on a high mountain, Zion, Mevaseret Tzion, Zion, gospel bringer. What preaches the gospel? Zion. That's it. That's all God ever gave that preaches the gospel. One thing and one thing only. Judaism. That's all he ever gave that preaches the gospel. He says, get yourself up on a high mountain, Mevaseret Tzion, Zion, gospel bringer. Get up high, Yerushalayim, Mevaseret Yerushalayim, gospel bringer, Jerusalem. Raise your voice, yell to them. Here is your God. Where is your God? In Jerusalem. That's what God's plan was. For every Jew to do Judaism, invite all the Gentiles up to the mountain to see and meet and get to know God. And it can happen every day, all day long. And nothing has changed in this plan. This is still God's plan. So, if you can see that in picture form, these verses should now make sense to you. Matthew chapter 7. Not everyone who says to me, Adonai, Adonai, will enter the Malchut, the kingdom, but the one who does the will of my Father in heaven. What's God's will? Judaism. That's where we see God's will, the mitzvah. If you do the mitzvah, that's doing God's will. If you fight against the mitzvot, you're fighting against God's will. It's that simple. Or else just rip it out of the Bible and say it's not God's will. You can't keep it in the Bible and say it's not God's will. Numbers 11. No one has arisen greater than John the Immerser, yet the one who is least in the kingdom is greater than he. And from the days of John the Immerser until now, the kingdom of heaven has been treated violently. I am ready to fight for the kingdom, Judah said to Yoseph. You see what I'm saying? You got to be willing to fight for Judaism and for Torah and for the mitzvot and for the pictures in the Torah. You got to fight for it. Well, you don't have to. You don't have to. But I would strongly suggest it. Violent men take that kingdom by force. The kingdom doesn't come to you just because you're a nice guy or a nice girl. You got to fight for it. Matthew 8. Whoever will humble himself like this child. All right, picture the brothers. Whoever will humble himself like this child. Who's the youngest? Benjamin. Where is Jerusalem? In Benjamin. Jerusalem is in Benjamin. Whoever will humble himself like this child, he's the greatest in the kingdom. What's going to be the greatest place in the kingdom? Jerusalem. Well, Jerusalem specifically. Yes? The temple in Jerusalem, in the kingdom, in Israel. Greatest place, the greatest, the highest, the biggest. Whoever will humble himself like this child, like the youngest kid, Benjamin, he'll be the greatest in the kingdom. Now look at this. I think, this is my opinion, that he's quoting Psalm 68 here. That Yeshua is quoting Psalm 68. It says, bless God in the congregations, plural. There is little Benjamin, joined together, friend of the leaders of Judah. Joined together, the friend of the kings of Judah. That's right. Little Benjamin is where Jerusalem is, not Judah. And so here's where the ruling and reigning comes from. It comes from the king of Israel, which is from Judah, in Benjamin. You get what I'm saying? Yes. Now, Colossians 1. I want you to picture Judah fighting for Benjamin, the littlest brother, because he didn't fight earlier. He's fighting for his brothers. He's Judah. He's the king of the Jews. He's going to be the king of the Jews. He's going to produce the king of the Jews, the Messiah. And he's fighting for the little brother. Colossians 1, for he rescued us from the domain of darkness and transferred us to the Malchut, the kingdom of his beloved Son. Who did that for Benjamin? Judah. So Yeshua does it for us. John 4. You Jews, this is a Samaritan woman speaking. You Jews say that in Jerusalem is the place where one is to worship. Is that true? That us Jews say that Jerusalem is the place that worship should take place? Absolutely. Yeshua said, you know what? You worship what you don't know. You ever said that to anybody? You worship what you don't know. You've said that to somebody? Oh, okay. But have you ever? I have, and it did not go over well. You worship what you don't know. We, Jews, worship what we know. And this was said in the first century by Yeshua. Now, go into a church and say the word Pharisee. And everybody thinks it's a bad guy, a black hat. No. We worship what we do know. The Jews know God. He said this in the first century when all the Jews were bad, when they were all evil. Yeshua said this. We worship what we know. Because salvation is from the Jews. Now, that is an amazing, amazing statement. And it should be life-changing for you if it hasn't been already. It should change you. It should flip something in you. Like when you're, like, what are they called? The one-armed bandits? Slot machines? And those wheels start, flopping around. And then they settle in a new place. That's what this set of verses should do to you. It should make you think, wait a minute. The whole world is a world of lies. The whole world is a world of lies. Like the Matrix. Yeah? And there's only one true right thing. And God said it over and over and over and over and over. Noda bihuda Elohim. God is known in Judah. Psalm 74, verse 1. God is known in Judaism. The way of Judah is Judaism. You need to get over your fear, and I think it's fear. Because bad doctrine makes you scared. That's what it does. It makes us scared of stuff. I got loads of them. Believe me, I know what I'm talking about. I got loads of stuff I got to get rid of the fear of a word or a concept or a doctrine. Why? Because somebody told me something really stupid over and over and over, and I believed it. You're going to have to flip your brain and your heart. If you're scared of the word or the word bothers you or grates on you, Judaism, my God, really? But I understand. Believe me, I understand. I'm making it sound like I don't, but I do. I really do. I really understand. But you're going to have to do some work to get to what God is showing us, not what people have shown us. So, this is my message to you. This is my message to you. This. That Yeshua didn't deliver you from the domain of darkness because he likes you and you were such a good guy or girl. He did it because of the Jews. And you, out of the graciousness of God's amazing, amazing, twisted heart, invited you into it. Period. That's all there is. You were invited in. So don't waste the opportunity. Don't waste it. Dig in. And if I'm wrong, great. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. But you got to prove it. Just like I've proven to you, at least one little tiny facet. Get what I'm saying? Okay. I think that's about as good as I can do. That's how I end every teaching. That's as good as I can do. I like that ending. Let's pray. Thank you, Abba, that you fight. Through Yeshua, you fight for your people. You fight for Judaism. You fight for Jerusalem. You fight for the Torah. You fight for your word. You fight for the mitzvot. You fight for all the ways that you gave your people, Israel, so that we can get to know you. And Lord, I ask that you light a spark in your people all over the world, that they would want to see and understand the pictures in Judaism, so they will get rid of their fear, dump their fear of Judah and of Judah's ways. He's a scary guy, Lord. You made the Jews scary, weird and scary. So I ask that you'd help your body to shed that fear. And I ask that you'd help us to get to know who you really are. You're so twisted. You're so amazing, but you are so tricky and twisted. And I ask that you'd teach us your ways, Abba. In the name of Yeshua. Amen. Let's stand for the Aleinu. Now think about these words as you say them, especially the first paragraph. This first paragraph is awesome. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. Let us adore the Lord of all, who in greatness created the world from of old, that he has not made us like the nations of the earth, not made us like the families of the land. He has not made our destiny like theirs, or cast our lot with all of them. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz. Bayom hahu, yiyeh Adonai echad, ushemo echad. Va'anachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim, lifnei melech malachei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we bend the knee and bow in worship and give thanks to the King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed is He. We acknowledge before the King of Kings that there's none like Him. There's nothing but Him. As Torah says, know that the Lord, he is God in the heavens above and on the earth beneath. Ein od milvado. There's nothing else but him. Shabbat shalom. Let's do Kiddush, please.